Thank you and welcome to UBC TV. Good morning, Uganda Extra. My name is Jagenda Semakola Zikusoka Sajabi on the 13th of June in this year 2022. Welcome and thank you so much for choosing to be with us here again. Now, tomorrow we'll be reading the budget for 2022-2023 and UBC TV just promises to deliver on our promise that we'll cover that event live as the executive reads the budget to the nation tomorrow. The budget for year 2022-2023, and of course that will be coming on tomorrow. But just let you know that 26th of this month will be the full coronation of Bishop David Livingstone Ibanjagara, David, to the position of the UN Peace Ambassador in Uganda. And of course the Vice President is expected or will be expected to be in attendance. We congratulate Bishop Livingstone Ibanjagara upon this very big milestone in his service to the Lord God and of course to the nation and to humanity. Now let's turn back to our conversation today, and joining me in studios this morning is Mr. John Mugisha, and he is a probation and welfare officer from the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you for having me.
A very good morning and happy to have you this morning, and thank you so much for joining us on UBC TV today.
I'm grateful for having me.
We'll talk about the Day of the African Child.
Yes.
In brief, what is it?
Well, I'm very excited that I'm here today just to share with people what the Day of the African Child means.
Very good.
So basically we have a day that was gazetted for the African child. For a child that is a Ugandan, a Nigerian, a South African, as long as the child is an African, set aside 16th of June. This was a day that was gazetted. Of course, it has a background as to why it came about. It started with the history in South Africa in 1976 when children went on the streets of Soweto, and they were kind of complaining about the conditions they were going through in their education. And some of them lost their lives and others were tear gassed and all these different things. So as OAU then felt that we need to remember what the student did and we need to emphasize the African child. And so a day was put there, and that is 16th of June. Each and every single year we remember the African child and talk about the things that affect them. So in a nutshell, that is it.
If the children who died from whom we start this day in 1976 could come back here today, if they rose and came back today, what would they be happy or proud about this particular day?
I think they would be appreciative that their efforts didn't go in vain, and that the whole African continent actually appreciates what they did in their time, because the results are now, being seen in the children of today, and they're benefiting from what they did. Yes.
So what we do with this particular day and what we do on this particular day, of course, we know the history, the significance, and it's a day that is here for us. 16th is this week on Thursday.
Yeah, on Thursday.
We'll be celebrating this. But what are some of the things that we do to actually belong and really know that we are actually celebrating the Day of the African Child?
So basically on this day, even before the day itself, we have activities that run up to the day. So we do a lot of evaluation of what we have done for the children of this country, for the children who are yet to be born. So different things in policy and practice. What are we doing as government? What are we doing as development partners, as CSOs, as parents, as community members? What are we doing for the children? So we take stock of what has been done across board in terms of different things. So we are there reflecting in all these different things. But at the same time, we give the children an opportunity to also ask the easy questions and the hard questions in terms of their own welfare. What exactly has government done? What do they want government to do for them that maybe it has not yet done? What do they envision out of everything that is happening to them? So it's that kind of period. But at the end of the day, we are looking at making the African child get to understand their value, that they are the future of this continent, and that we need to invest in them. So at the end of the day, we're doing accountability to the bosses of the future. Yes.
Very important. And because you come from Ministry of Labour, Gender, Labour and Social Development, which is of course the parent ministry that houses the children in this country.
Yes.
And I'm just, probing into knowing from you how much we as a country have actually done in as far as doing what you're saying is concerned.
Yes.
The child, for example. level.
Yeah.
Looking at it, the priorities with the child. You know, we tend to talk about the youth, and we also negate or forget that these children who are social dependents, every which way you go, are another very vulnerable category or group of persons here.
Yeah.
But how much are we doing as a country to do the accountability to the future bosses, as you say?
Yes. Well, we're doing a lot. And the beauty about this year, we are focusing on the theme that was given to us in terms of what has Uganda done in eliminating harmful practices affecting children from the time of 2013, both in practice and in policy. So as a Minister of Gender, we have done a lot. We have a child policy, first of all, 2020, that entirely focuses on the child well-being, looking at the child in totality, the child's development, the child's survival, the child's participation, the child's protection, but as well as system strengthening, because we know the children are vulnerable, and therefore the system has to be strengthened from the grassroots up to the national level. So we have that policy. We have also amended the Children's Act. The Children's Act is kind of looking at the different laws kind of affecting children, different issues. And in that we even included the issues of harmful practices. We have also done a lot in terms of ordinances as the districts and cities. And well, I think you know KCCA has already pushed out one, which is actually going to take care of the issue that has been on the streets. And many times people have been saying, Minister of Gender is not doing anything. But you remember that the Local Government Act actually decentralized social services, brought services closer to the people. So it's no longer the center, it is now the districts and the cities to take to note of that. But as well as we have come up with different frameworks in terms of ensuring that children are protected. We have set up what we call a toll-free line. I don't know if you have heard of Sauti 116.
Sauti, yes.
Yes, so Sauti is there listening to the children's issues as well as transiting into the different actors, as well as bringing in a coordination arm, bringing in a multi-sectoral approach. As the Minister of Gender, we are now doing things collectively with other colleagues in line ministries, in the development sectors, and as well private sectors. So we're trying to bring everything together to try and push and ensure that the children's agenda is at the forefront. So we are aware that at times the children sometimes are left behind, but there's a lot that is being done underneath in terms of policy and the frameworks that are being set up. So there's a lot that's going on, and that's why we want the children to know that we do value them. And we know that if we don't invest in them now, we won't have a future.
In 2018,
Yes.
we launched a policy called the National Sexuality Education Framework.
Yeah.
In, I think, 2018 still, we also launched another program called the ECD.
Yes.
In 2018 again, we launched another policy about the children and etc. And I'm only just wanting to know how these have helped our efforts to start with. The ECD, for example, the sexuality framework, for example, and of course very many good policies like these that you talk about, the latest one I think being the Child Policy 2020. Yes, how these things are very useful and helping us to get that child that we actually want, and their impact by and large.
Well, we have launched those policies and we have now transited into implementation. I don't know if you're aware, some of the different institutions, for example, for the ECD policy, we have had child care centers, you know, having different frameworks, setting up safeguards to ensure that children you know, have the best and quality services. So there's a lot that is being implemented within the line of the frameworks, guiding and ensuring that we have children being raised from the point of inception to the point when their brains are like fully developed. So we are now guiding and coming up with different manuals for the community engagements that parents are taken through. You know, by and large, most times people become parents accidentally. And sometimes people don't even know.
Also.
Yes, people get excited and they get children and they don't know what to do with them. And therefore, as a ministry, we even added in the parenting guidelines. So we're trying to see that people understand how do we take care of this unique category? How do we ensure we get maximum Ugandans who will be productive and ensure that this country is kind of prosperous in all that it does? So we're now trying to bring the frameworks more simplified. The ECD policy has a simplified version, which we do give out to the communities to try and read. The problem is, I would say that as Africans or Ugandans in particular, we don't like reading. But sometimes the answers are in the framework. They're in the lines that if you read, you're able to understand what you can do. But we're having at least this being implemented. So there's quite a lot underneath there.
Okay. You talked about the theme as?
The theme is Uganda's progress in eliminating harmful practices that are affecting children.
Okay.
Since 2013. In 2013, we had the theme that year was focusing on harmful practices that each state should talk about and how they're handling. And so there were resolutions that were made. So the AU, the African Union, is quite interested in knowing what each country has done since 2013. What have you done in policy and in practice? So there's been quite a lot, and that's what we're focusing on.
So which are some of these harmful practices, for example, if we categorize them culturally and etc.?
Yeah. So harmful practices, most times people are quick to drive towards FGM and others, but there's quite a lot. For example, we have issues of the child beggars that you see, those that are selling on the streets. We have issues of the child marriages, although the legal minds will tell you if you say child marriage, then you have legalized the issue.
By calling it a marriage.
Yeah, by calling it a marriage. So sometimes they tend to drive it towards defilement. Then we have issues of online pornography, where children are being driven towards showing their naked pictures online and selling themselves. We have children being engaged in prostitution. So these are different harmful cultural practices, including the FGMs and others. Yeah.
And so what have we done with those, about those? We as a country, our progress on those?
Yeah, our progress has been quite good. Like I started with the issue of KCCA showing an ordinance, trying to push, even other districts have in the process of pushing out ordinances to try and remove, for example, children beggars, street children, because we know that these children are not birthed from the street. They come from somewhere, a home. They don't just come out from a hole. So there's quite a lot, but we know that in order for us to respond, we must have a given framework. You have to have a plan. How are you going to address this? So the ordinances are one of them. We have amended the Children's Act, CAP 59, and we included the harmful practices as one of the issues. Child marriage, the FGM, we put an emphasis in the Children's Act to ensure that we guide the law enforcers, to ensure we guide those who are implementing what they need to do around these issues. We have also come up with task forces in order to monitor some of these things, in order to also come up with a collective, addressing of this issue. Sometimes when you are alone, you fail, but when you are in your togetherness and you're working together in a coordinative way, you're able to contribute. Then also we have tried to kind of put in line sort of like an education program to try and educate the masses about some of these harmful cultural practices, because in one person's eyes something they're doing may be correct, but to another, you who has been enlightened, you may not really get far. So we're more of preaching the gospel to them that, this contributes to this is harmful in this way, it affects this child in this way. And we're saying children should be in school and not being on the street selling these different things. As much as you're saying that you are trying to help them in their future, but you're affecting them the more, you are actually causing more harms. We have seen children being knocked on the roads, we have seen children being defiled on the roads, so different things happening to them. So we're trying to show the negativity that is around these harmful cultural practices, but also encouraging the general public to report. You cannot do anything if people don't report. And sometimes I see people complaining, police have not done this, government is not doing this, but people are not reporting. When we tell them, come forward and tell us, give us the information. Who are those who are doing these syndicates and bringing these children to do these different things? Who are trafficking these children? The same people are the ones who hide and say no. And that's why they say that the reason why the evil prevails is because the good people do nothing.
Do nothing about it.
So the least someone can do is report. And we have put there mechanisms of how people can report. At least if they call us on the 116, we're able to channel this to the police and say, there are children who are being gathered to be taken somewhere. We don't know where. There are children who are on a bus being transited somewhere. If you walk up to a police station, they know what to do. So at least you try and say they did do it, and then the system is able to be reprimanded by those who are above those who you went to. So that is the thing. think. Yeah.
Okay, we'll read the budget tomorrow. And of course, the budget has been passed by Parliament. So tomorrow is just a ceremony to actually just get the budget read to us.
Yeah.
And the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, of course, as a government department or a government ministry, an MDA, has its own vote.
Yes.
And I'm just very sure that one of the least funded priorities in your ministry should be the children. And if we look at the children as the future of tomorrow and the vanguard of tomorrow and etc., and our bosses that we are counting to, you'll notice that there is going to be a lot of money that is going to be put onto these other very many different projects under your ministry, and this particular child department or the vote of children itself is one of the least funded. But don't you think there's a problem with our priorities if the children who are the vanguard for tomorrow or tomorrow are not even a funded priority in this country?
Well, I beg to differ. I know, yes, the Ministry of Gender may receive quite little, but we need to understand that the issue of children is cross-cutting. It's not for one ministry entirely. When you give Ministry of Education, you're giving children. When you prioritize to fund the different programs in education, you're investing in children. When you give in health for issues of immunization, you are funding for children. When you give for issues of roads construction, you are creating pathways for children to pass. Yes, we need, especially around issues of protection and ensuring that we implement the frameworks. I do believe that, but it's a work in progress. We have seen at least that collectiveness, and we have tried also engaging with the different actors within our sector, in terms of the development partners, in terms of the CSOs, to come together and work with the ministry, because they have to complement government. And so we're trying to utilize what is there, as government, of course, tries to arrange itself and see how they can add us more support. But at least we are grateful that within the other line ministries, departments, and agencies, there is at least a component around giving towards the children. So whatever is being given, because the children are not entirely for one ministry, they are cross-cutting on different issues. When you give NIRA money to go and have children registered, you're contributing to us saying every child has a national ID, meaning if I get someone who has defied a child, my case will go through and I'll be able to have this person behind bars. So different things. But I do agree that maybe more needs to be done, but it's not at zero at least.
Okay. No, I didn't say it's at zero. I didn't say it's at zero. But again, just getting back to this particular one here is look at the children themselves. The Constitution is very clear on who the youth are.
Yes.
Who are the children?
The children are also very clear in the Constitution. Those who are below the age of 18.
Those who are below the age of 18.
Yes.
How many do you have in this country?
Well, by percentage, we keep rising. The last time I checked, over 56% and above are children.
Over 56%?
56%.
Of our population?
Yes, and over 78, I think, percent are youth. So some of the youth are still children. So you need to understand that. And some of the youth are now in that transit age of adulthood. So it's that. But about 56% going towards 60, I think. Those are children. And isn't that dangerous to our development or something? No, it's not dangerous. It's actually something good. It shows that Uganda has continuation. That actually our young population can be turned into something that could actually spearhead more quicker development for this nation. And therefore actually people should actually be excited and say, how well do we ensure that the children are well taken care of? And even as we celebrate this day of the African child on the 16th, how do we ensure that the children are put at the center of development, as well as the youth, of course? But how do we ensure that we are building this nation for them, with them? They are participating. Of course, remembering that we need to also emphasize that children need to know their responsibilities. That if you as a parent have paid fees, what's the role of the child? That if government has put in place schools, what is the role of the children? That if there is a health center, what is the role? If a child falls sick, what are they supposed to do? So these different dynamics. So if we build a nation that is vibrant on this young population, which has, you know, if you have a plant that is growing, it's easier to turn it left, to turn it right, because it's still growing, it will continue. Then of course when you have an age where it has reached a point and if you turn it to breaks. So I think we still have an opportunity of showing our children, building the culture, the Ugandan culture, bringing patriotism to the forefront and making children love their nation. But of course they must start from the family. Because if the children appreciate the families they come from, then they will love their nation. So we need, as parents, create that environment and then push them to the community and push them to the schools and then push them to the nation.
Okay, very important. Now, you know, I love it from your angle as a policy maker, as government. Let's get back to the parents themselves, because it starts with us. I am convinced that our parents, maybe your parents and my parents, groomed us for a world that they knew nothing about. But I don't think my mother knew much about what I would encounter in the future. I am not like my mother or my father, because I can at least try to predict what my children will face in the future. And just looking at that, where should the parents be? Do we listen to these children speaking as we plan all these things, or we think these are things that should be put into place for them to just fatanyai?
No, I think we need to involve them. We need to involve them in the process, but depending on their ages, okay? The discussion can begin as low as what they think about what they are going to eat. Why should they eat this type of food? What do they benefit from it? They should start with them recognizing the environment they are in. Why is it that daddy goes to work, mommy goes to work? Why does it uncle, why does my guardian do this? Why am I going to school? What is the purpose? What do I want to become in future? So the parents must be the first facilitators of the development, of the understanding, of a child's awareness of the possibilities that are around them. And then that would be the gradual process. So they need to be part of the whole process. They need to be, you know, asked. You know, sometimes there was a time a parent was complaining and saying that my child doesn't want to go to a particular school. And the parent didn't want to listen to the child, but wanted their way. Until one of the counselors in the school told the parent to sit with the child. And they shared, and the child said the reason. Said A, B, C, D, because the school there is, you know, this, they tease, they do this. And that time when you saw my suitcase was broken, it wasn't that I threw it down, someone broke it.
Somebody broke it.
So the parent was like, wait, you mean I beat you because I thought you were careless? The child said, I feared, because the kind of way you kind of present yourself. You see that? So the parents must foster that friendshipness, must bring the child closer, but must remember that they are the parent. The children should not overrun them. There are parents who have reached a point whereby the children are the ones who determine. And they say, Dad, I don't want you to go this, and the father sits. So we must remember our role as the people who are going to guide these children into the adults we want to see.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we'll still continue the conversation on UBC TV. We'll just take a very short break and return. Then carry on with the conversation. With me is Mr. John Gisha, and he's a probation and welfare officer from the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development. Talk about the Day of the African Child, which will be celebrated this week on Thursday. We'll take a short break and return thereafter.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
The Tales of Kasozi, brought to you by Uganda Communications Commission.
Hello? Hello?
This is Kasozi. How can I help you?
Hey, Kasozi, my brother. Long time. We last met when we were at campus. It's been a while, but you are the person I'm looking for.
Campus? Really?
Hey, you don't remember me?
Okay, so how can I help you?
I'm stuck in Gulu making millions, and I need to urgently send money to my sick mother. But I can't find any mobile money agent near me. I've sent the money to your phone, as you can see the message. It might take a few minutes to come through, but I urgently need you to send the money to my mother. Let me send you her number, and you send it to her chap.
My friend, I'm afraid your mom is going to die.
What?
Because I don't know you, I never went to campus, and I'm also in Gulu. So can we meet at CPS, we talk about it? Stay tuned for what Kasozi does next.
Tofera. Refrain from unnecessary engagements with strangers over the phone. This message is powered by the Uganda Communications Commission.
Pick of the day on UBC. Was brought to you by
Show them Waka with MTN Mama Nyabo. Simply deposit 20K or more on your mobile money for a chance to win 3 Toyota Succeeds and money to 2,000 lucky winners every week. We're giving away 24 cars and over 2 billion shillings of mobile money.
Hey, it's time to play. Let's go! We're glad you came. Because we love to share. Let's have some fun. What should we try next? With everyone. Because we love to learn together. Making new friends forever. Sesame Street friends.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Thank you and welcome back from the break. My name is Jagenda Semakola Zikusouka. Continuing with the conversation of the Day of the African Child with Mr. Mjisha John from the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development. What are the celebrations this year?
This year we are going to Butaleja district in the east.
Okay.
And preparations are in high gear. Actually today there's a lot of excitement, buzz left and right in terms of what people should expect on that day. And we have called on all those around Butaleja to come and celebrate with us the Day of the African Child.
Why Butaleja?
Butaleja, we have seen the emphasis of issues of child marriage and then of course the teenage pregnancy rate very high. I believe you're aware of the youngest grandmother in the world is actually that side of Butaleja. Maybe we shall have a chance to interact with her and maybe ask how things are going, what she envisions for her family. So we look forward to the day. And the celebrations will be at the district headquarters. We have prepared quite well with the district and they're taking lead that side.
What is expected of them?
Well, what's expected of them is just to ensure that preparations are well done, mobilization, of course having different engagements. They've been having community engagements around these harmful practices. Them as a district, what do they see? Of course, the district colleagues have been giving us feedback that the community members have been saying one of the other issues that they have been seeing that is so harmful is the child labor issue. And as you're aware, just yesterday we had the celebrations of addressing issues of child labor. So they're also saying child labor is a problem. One of the issues, children are going and they're going to work in mines and different places, and that's why they are having a lot of dropouts, and all these different things are contributing to that.
There's a problem also because you notice that the children in each country are at the same time also parents. And I just want to know how we're managing the situation of having parents who are also children at the same time.
Well, I think it's a case-by-case basis. Where we have had child-headed households, we have had different support systems coming in, working well with the community structures to see that these families are supported, whether the children are moved to relatives, whether they have gotten guardians, or within the LC1 system where you have the vice taking over and looking after this family and giving them support. Because at times we have had parents abandoning children, not necessarily that they're dead, but maybe they have all abandoned their home because of different challenges like domestic violence and others. So you find people have gone and they have left the children and they're the ones suffering. But within the districts they have structures which they're supposed to utilize, and as well as where we have gotten those complaints where that the children who have been abandoned in the house, we have come through at least to try and assist. And that's why we encourage people to tell us, to speak up. Because we cannot be everywhere. You can't know what is happening right now at the back of this building because unless someone comes and tells you that there's this and that. So people have to tell us and inform their districts, and then we can be able to provide the services.
Where are the other stakeholders, the churches, cultural institutions, etc.?
They are part of this. They are part of this process because we do believe that the cultural leaders and the religious leaders have a role to play. They actually determine sometimes the behaviors of these communities. They are the ones who have the power to tell the communities to take on government services. They are the ones to encourage people to forgive where there's been violence so that families stay together. So we have involved them at different levels to try and see that they also contribute to this process, because we believe that the issue of addressing the harmful practices, it's a collective issue. The cultural institutions must be part of this because there are certain things they can address culturally and tell them this practice we have stopped. We have now taken on this one. The religious leaders have, both the imams and the Christian faith, have the abilities to tell these people that, you know what, I think this and that we can live. We don't need to have a girl of 12 years going with a man of 52 years. It's not really logical. It's not really worth it. And the laws of these countries do not allow that. So we have to use those different avenues. So we have brought them to the forefront. First, to give them the information. Because if they have the information, then they can give it. If you don't have information, you can't tell someone what you don't know. So we must show a claim as to why we're saying this should be done and addressed in this way. Yeah.
I talked about the sexuality education framework of 2018, and I specifically had different voices from the religious leaders who are actually condemning the policy itself, saying it had the category of children, I think, between 3 and maybe 6 years, and teaching them sexuality issues. And you know, when you talk about sexuality, people construe it as sex, in a way.
Yeah.
And so they were very uneasy with it.
Yes.
And I'm only thinking, well, where do we go? Because these are the children, and because we've had a problem of, for example, look at the youngest grandmother.
Yes.
Now, the youngest grandmother means she started engaging in sex much earlier, and the baby that she gave birth to also, and at the end of it all, and you know, and you can tell the cycle. Now, that is a generation that really needs the grace of God to actually become anything, because you can't expect this grandmother to go maybe to school and become the girl that she was supposed to become. So when you talk sexuality, many people don't seem to maybe pick the concept of sexuality. Do you involve these stakeholders, religious leaders, cultural leaders, when you are planning these, or you only just boom, throw it to them and say, here it is, implement it?
No, we do involve them, and just to emphasize, like, issues of terminologies, we do have what we call dialogues, where we discuss what they are thinking. Because in one person's language, a certain word may mean another. And therefore, you may find that the way a certain policy has been framed and brought to the forefront, because of the level of participation, some may think it's contrary. And therefore, it's very important for us to do dialogue. So we do a lot of dialogues where we involve the Religious Council to come and sit with us and discuss some of these different issues. They are part of different committees, actually, within the sector. And we do discuss some of these things, and they do say, this one, we are not comfortable with it. Is there a way of bringing it to this level? And we have told them, okay, yes, you can bring it like this, but the main thing, this is the message. Are people getting the message? How you're delivering the message, that's up to you, but are they getting the actual message that we're trying to portray and not being misled? So it's a process, and there are a lot of backlashes on different policies, different laws that come up, and you find people are quickly to say this is going to happen. They look at the negativities and leave out the positivities. So it's been a process, and it's still a process, and we think that eventually people will appreciate what the framework wants to do, and then we'll be able to have it uptake. But there are a lot of different things that we're trying to push through, including schemes that could help these different institutions that have children and youth as part of their members, as flocks, to be able to benefit. But it's a process, but dialogue is the way to go.
We have quite a number of reception centers and remand homes, and I think there's another. We normally have many of these homes, rehabilitation centers. How important and how effective have they been in helping our children? Because I know we have quite a number of those, which would, in a layman's understanding, be children prisons.
Okay, yeah, but okay, for Uganda, we have one reception center, that's Naguru, and then of course we have several remand homes. But
and what's the difference?
The difference is this: the reception center is for children who are in need of care and protection. A child who's in need of care and protection maybe has been abandoned on the street and is between the age of 0, maybe by birth, 0 to 8, they can be placed there.
Dumped somewhere.
Maybe someone left the child on the street. Maybe a girl produced a baby and put the baby in a box. They could be taken there. Or they could be taken to what we call approved children's homes, which the ministry approves, which are run by NGOs.
NGOs and private individuals.
Yes, and private individuals. Then when it comes to the remand homes, these are more of places where children who are in conflict with the law are placed. but it's not a prison. It's more of a place to kind of create that rehabilitation, a process to begin where they're being kept as they wait for their cases to be heard. And not all cases are going to the remand homes. Of course, we have the diversion guidelines of police, which have helped a lot. These minor cases. A child took a chicken. This can be sorted by the LC. That your parent just brings another chicken and we sort that. But previously, everyone would just flock. A chicken, a child ate my food. I don't like this child. He's always walking around the road and what? And then they push to the remand home. So the remand homes have reached a point whereby they had to now cut off all those. They are getting cases which are at least capital in nature, which are high stake, where children's lives are at risk. So the remand homes begin the process of trying to guide these children afresh. That, you know, society does not hate you. You may have made mistakes, but you're still children, and there's still a point of change. And we have seen some of the children in the remand homes actually graduating with the vocational skills. Naguru Remand Home here is an example where you see children are being taken through different things, crafting, agriculture, and all that. When they go back, they are not going to do the same thing they did. They are changed. Even when the parents come to pick them, they are excited that my child has changed. Now, when it comes to the rehabilitation center, it's those children whose cases have been completed within the court process. And they say, okay, now they are going to pass out their sentence and they will be there for maybe 2-3 months. And those are the ones who will go the other side. And they will also go through a given process.
Those who go to?
The Campinings Rehabilitation Center. Those are the ones who have gone through the court process and their cases have been concluded and they have been sent that side. And they will also go through a rehabilitation. They'll be taken through training, vocational, how to do this. We're trying to impact skills that this child may not go back to being idle. If, for example, they were out of school, they will be able to start something for themselves when they go back. They could be productive in a way. Yeah. So these places are not supposed to be places of scaring children that if you do this, we take you to the remand home. As parents, nobody tell them. No. These are places where children who have found it hard in life and made mistakes or being misled by adults are able to be caught again by that safety net and pushed back to the community as a reformed.
Do you have any success stories from maybe Campinings?
There are quite so many. There are quite so many, and I think I would advocate that you do pay a visit and engage with the in-charges, and they'll be able to show you some of these children. They are back in the community and they're doing great things, and some of them even come back to show the others. I've heard of those who left and came back to plant trees, and they are now doing a tree business, and they brought trees for others to plant. So there are those who have really transformed. Of course, there are those others who already they are in certain aspects, maybe because of drug abuse and others, and maybe the parenting bit, parents have given up on them, so they feel the world has given up on them, and when they get out, they just continue the same process.
Okay. On the issue of child labor, which I think is also another problem that we have when we talk about, you call them harmful practices, and I think child labor is one of those.
Yes.
We have people in our homes, Jisha, a Semakula like me, and you're employing a 14-year-old girl or boy in your house as your maid, as your, your children go to school, but there's this little boy who is actually opening the gate for you or keeping in the house for you and doing all the things. We do those things, but we're trying to think, well, after all, Uganda or whatever that is. Yes, he lost a dad or lost a mom, so they're here. I'm feeding them, I'm keeping them. They're these. What do we need to do with such cases?
No, I think we need to understand what the law provides. The Employment Act provides for a child to do some light work at the age of 16. That does not affect their development. The challenge is that some people get children who are as young as 9 to look after babies. I think that's very wrong. And we need to understand when these children now make mistakes, where you find a child drowned another child, then you blame that this child is so bad and you send this child to the remand home. We need to understand the circumstances which the children ended up there. And it's at the point of the parenting. The parents look at them as a money-making venture. Because they have John who is working in Kampala, they think they are going to get a lot of money. So they give John, and John gives them 20,000 every month. And then at the end of the day, this child suffers. So we have told people and the communities to report. We have had cases actually through the Sauti 116 of where girls have been accused and boys to have stolen something. When these children start demanding that have been with you, uncle so-and-so, auntie so-and-so, you said you're going to give me money, which I'll go back and study. Now you are saying you're not giving me money. They put their cases that these children have stolen, these children are bad, they have done this, and these children end up in cells. So it's that kind of quality. But we have really advocated for people to get professional maids, people who are of a given age. A person who is 18 would be standard. A 17-year-old, you can have a maid and give this maid some kind of training. It's also part of development. If you go and skill them in ECD, for example, it means that even when they end the work here with you, they can go and work maybe in an ECD center as a caretaker. You know, you would have started for them something. So it is about looking at what age really are you getting this child from. I'll give an example. For me in my home, I don't have a nanny who is that age, a maid who is that age. No, a maid is above 18. I cannot. It's by standard. I set the standard for others, so that if I am saying something, I've done it. I've seen the difference, because the person that I have at home, my wife and I, are happy because we know we're at work, we know the person is there, is more of like a mother. But when you have someone who is a child looking after children, what do you expect? Disaster. The house has burnt, gas has blown up, everything is on fire. Then you start blaming, you know, these, my neighbors are the bad ones. But it's the way people are doing this. But it's the society, how people are perceiving. They look at it, because when you tell people that not engage children in such harmful work, they think you are prohibiting children from learning how to work. But there's a way you can guide a child. Telling a child to wash dishes does not mean that you are punishing this child. You are teaching the child the basics. Come, my daughter, let's cook together. You are teaching the basics that this child will employ in the future. So that one is okay. You are there, you are guiding the process. You're not telling the child, you go and dig from morning to evening because I want to plant. No, that is a harmful practice. So people have to differentiate what is harmful and the circumstances which these people are working. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Mr. Mujisha, I want to thank you so much. But just before I let you go, we have a few minutes. In the last maybe 2 minutes, talk to us again about the Day of the African Child, where it's going to be, the theme of the day itself, and the activities, and what the rest of us should expect on a Thursday as we celebrate this year's Day of the African Child.
Okay. Thank you very much. And I'm very grateful for our audience for listening to us, and the UBC for, you know, the kind of quality service that you're giving. So we just want to emphasize that this week on Thursday, 16th June 2022, we shall be in Butaleja celebrating the Day of the African Child under the theme Uganda's progress in eliminating harmful practices that affect children, both in practice and in policy, since 2013. So we shall be at the district headquarters in Butaleja, and we're excited. We're excited. Let us not make it more of a day of talking and talking. Let's make it a day of evaluating what we have done for the children of this nation, what we are planning to do, what can be done better. And at most, let us listen to the children themselves who are affected by some of the things that we do as parents, as leaders, as politicians, so that at the end of the day, we have a vibrant future of young leaders. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, John Gisha, Probation and Welfare Officer from the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development. Thank you so much for joining us on IUBC today. And of course, today is on Thursday.
Yes.
At Butaleja District Headquarters.
Yes.
In Butaleja District.
Yeah.
And the day is on Thursday.
It will be on Thursday.
Please join them and join everybody, all the people from Tororo, from Abusore, from Bachonga, Mbale, all those areas.
Yeah.
So please, you're welcome. Go to Butaleja. Let's celebrate this day together. My name is Jagenda Semakola Ziksoka. Wishing you all the best. May the good Lord be with you. Shalom and good morning.
Good morning.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda Extra.